What is a statically determinate structure?
A structure where all internal forces and reactions can be determined using equilibrium equations alone, sigma F equals 0, sigma M equals 0, without needing compatibility or material properties.
What is the degree of static indeterminacy?
The number of redundant forces beyond those solvable by static equilibrium, calculated as the total unknowns minus the number of independent equilibrium equations.
What does the moment distribution method solve?
It solves for member-end moments in statically indeterminate beams and frames by iteratively distributing unbalanced moments at joints until equilibrium is reached.
Define the stiffness factor of a beam member.
The stiffness factor is K equals 4 EI/L for a far-end fixed member or K equals 3 EI/L for a far-end pinned member, where E is modulus, I is moment of inertia, and L is length.
What is the carryover factor in moment distribution?
It is 0.5 for a member with a fixed far end, meaning half the distributed moment at the near joint is carried over to the far joint.
What is the principle of superposition in structural analysis?
For linear elastic structures, the total response, deflection, moment, shear, caused by multiple loads equals the sum of responses caused by each load acting independently.
What is the virtual work method used for?
It is used to calculate deflections in trusses and beams by applying a virtual unit load at the point of desired deflection and integrating internal virtual work.
What is a plastic hinge in structural analysis?
A location in a structural member where the full plastic moment, MP, is reached, allowing rotation without additional moment resistance, enabling redistribution of moments.
What is the slenderness ratio of a column?
It is KL/R, where K is the effective length factor, L is the unbraced length, and R is the radius of gyration. It determines whether a column fails by buckling or crushing.
What is Euler's critical buckling load formula?
P_CR equals pi superscript 2 EI/KL, superscript 2, applicable to long, slender columns in the elastic range where buckling governs over material yielding.
What is the water-cement ratio in concrete mix design?
The ratio of the weight of water to the weight of cement in a mix. Lower ratios produce stronger, more durable concrete but reduce workability.
What does the 28-day compressive strength of concrete represent?
It is the standard design strength, FC, measured by crushing a cylinder or cube after curing for 28 days under controlled conditions.
What is the purpose of reinforcement in reinforced concrete?
Steel reinforcement resists tensile stresses that concrete cannot adequately carry, since concrete is strong in compression but weak in tension.
What is the modular ratio, N, in reinforced concrete design?
N equals E_S/E_C, the ratio of the modulus of elasticity of steel to that of concrete, used to transform steel area into an equivalent concrete area.
Define the yield strength of structural steel.
The stress at which steel begins to deform plastically, typically 250 MPa for mild steel or 350 MPa for high-strength steel, and no longer returns to its original shape upon unloading.
What is the ultimate tensile strength of steel?
The maximum stress a steel specimen can withstand before necking and fracture, always higher than the yield strength.
What is creep in concrete?
The time-dependent increase in strain under sustained constant stress. It causes long-term deflections in concrete members beyond initial elastic deflection.
What is shrinkage in concrete?
The volume decrease of concrete as it loses moisture during curing and drying, which can cause cracking if restrained.
What is the purpose of stirrups in a reinforced concrete beam?
Stirrups provide shear reinforcement to resist diagonal tension cracks that form near supports where shear forces are highest.
What does the ACI 318 code govern?
It provides structural concrete design and construction requirements in the United States, including strength, serviceability, and durability provisions.
What is Terzaghis effective stress principle?
Total stress, sigma, equals effective stress, sigma, plus pore water pressure, U sigma equals sigma plus U. Only effective stress controls soil strength and deformation.
What is the Atterberg limit that defines the boundary between plastic and liquid states?
The liquid limit, LL, determined using a Casagrande apparatus or fall cone test, is the water content at which soil transitions from plastic to liquid behavior.
Define the plasticity index, PI, of a soil.
PI equals LL minus PL, the difference between the liquid limit and the plastic limit. It indicates the range of water content over which soil behaves plastically.
What is the Unified Soil Classification System, USCS?
A system that classifies soils based on grain size distribution and Atterberg limits into groups like GW, well-graded gravel, CL, low plasticity clay, etc.
What is consolidation in soil mechanics?
The time-dependent volume decrease in saturated fine-grained soils under sustained load, caused by the gradual expulsion of pore water.
What does the coefficient of consolidation, CV, indicate?
It indicates the rate at which consolidation occurs in a clay layer. Higher CV means faster dissipation of excess pore water pressure.
What is the standard penetration test, SPT?
A field test where a split-spoon sampler is driven 450 mm into soil using a 63.5 kilograms hammer falling 760 mm. The blow count, N, indicates soil density or consistency.
What is the bearing capacity of soil?
The maximum pressure a soil can sustain under a foundation without shear failure or excessive settlement.
What is Terzaghis bearing capacity equation for a strip footing?
Q_U equals CN_C plus gamma D FN_Q plus 0.5 gamma BN gamma, where C is cohesion, gamma is unit weight, D_F is depth, B is width, and N_C, N_Q, N_gamma are bearing capacity factors.
What causes liquefaction in soils?
Cyclic loading, typically from earthquakes, on loose, saturated, granular soils causes poor water pressure to equal total stress, reducing effective stress to zero and causing the soil to behave like a liquid.
What is the hydrologic cycle?
The continuous movement of water through evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, infiltration, runoff, and storage in the atmosphere, surface, and subsurface.
Define the rational method for peak runoff estimation.
Q equals CIA, where Q is peak discharge, C is the runoff coefficient, I is rainfall intensity for the time of concentration, and A is the drainage area.
What is the time of concentration, TC?
The time for water to travel from the hydraulically most distant point in a watershed to the outlet. It determines the critical storm duration for peak flow calculation.
What is a unit hydrograph?
A hydrograph showing the direct runoff from one unit, e.g., 1 centimeter, of effective rainfall distributed uniformly over a watershed for a specific duration.
What is Manning's equation used for?
To estimate the average velocity of uniform open channel flow, V equals 1/n, R caret 2/3, S caret 1/2, where N is roughness, R is hydraulic radius, and S is slope.
What is the hydraulic radius?
R equals A/P, the cross-sectional flow area, A, divided by the wetted perimeter, P. It characterizes the efficiency of a channel section.
What is a flood frequency analysis?
A statistical method to estimate the probability of a flood of a given magnitude occurring, often using log-Pearson type 3 or Gumbel distributions.
What does the return period, T, of a flood represent?
The average recurrence interval in years. A 100-year flood has a 1% probability of being equaled or exceeded in any given year.
Define the curve number, Cn, in the SCS method.
A dimensionless number, 0 to 100, representing a watershed's runoff potential based on soil type, land use, and antecedent moisture. Higher CN means more runoff.
What is an intensity duration frequency (IDF) curve?
A graph relating rainfall intensity to storm duration for various return periods, used to determine design rainfall for drainage and flood control structures.
What is the design speed of a highway?
The maximum safe speed that can be maintained over a specific section of highway when conditions are favorable. It governs geometric design elements like curve radius and sight distance.
What is the stopping sight distance (SSD)?
The minimum distance a driver needs to perceive a hazard and stop safely. SSD equals brake reaction distance plus braking distance.
Define the superelevation of a highway curve.
The banking or tilting of the roadway cross-section on a horizontal curve to counteract centrifugal force. E equals V superscript 2/gr, in simplified form.
What is the capacity of a roadway defined by the Highway Capacity Manual?
The maximum sustainable hourly flow rate at which vehicles can traverse a point or uniform section under prevailing roadway, traffic, and control conditions.
What is level of service, LOS, in traffic engineering?
A qualitative measure from A, free flow, to F, forced flow, describing traffic operating conditions based on speed, travel time, freedom to maneuver, and density.
What is the AASHTO flexible pavement design method based on?
It uses the AASHTO road test empirical equations relating structural number, SN, traffic loading, easels, subgrade strength, resilient modulus, and serviceability loss.
What does the California Bearing Ratio, CBR, measure?
The strength of subgrade soil for pavement design, expressed as a percentage of the load required to penetrate a standard crushed rock sample.
What is an equivalent single axle load, ESAL?
A standard 18 kip, 80 knots, single axle load used to convert mixed traffic into a uniform measure for pavement design thickness calculations.
What is the purpose of a traffic signal warrant analysis?
To determine whether installation of a traffic signal is justified based on criteria such as traffic volume, pedestrian volume, crash history, and school crossings, MUTCD warrants.
What is a horizontal curve in highway design?
A circular or spiral arc connecting two tangent sections of a road, defined by its radius or degree of curvature, used to change direction of the roadway alignment.
What is the purpose of a differential level survey?
To determine differences in elevation between points using a leveling instrument and rod by reading backsights and foresights at turning points.
What is a benchmark, BM, in surveying?
A permanent reference point of known elevation used as a starting or closing point for leveling surveys.
What is a traverse in land surveying?
A series of connected straight lines, courses, with measured lengths and directions, used to establish horizontal control for mapping and construction.
What is the difference between an open and a closed traverse?
A closed traverse returns to its starting point or connects to another known point, allowing checks for accuracy. An open traverse ends at an unknown point with no closure check.
What is the allowable closure error in a first-order survey?
Typically 1:25000 or better, meaning the closure error must be less than 1 unit per 25,000 units of total distance traversed.
What is an electronic distance measurement, EDM, instrument?
A device that measures distance by emitting electromagnetic waves, infrared or laser, and calculating distance from the phase shift or travel time of the reflected signal.
What is a total station in surveying?
An instrument combining an EDM and electronic theodolite to measure horizontal angles, vertical angles, and distances simultaneously, with onboard data processing.
What does GPS RTK surveying achieve?
It provides centimeter-level accuracy in real-time positioning using a base station and rover that receive satellite signals and compute differential corrections.
What is a contour line on a topographic map?
A line connecting points of equal elevation. Closely spaced contour lines indicate steep terrain, while widely spaced lines indicate gentle slopes.
What is the purpose of a cut and fill calculation?
To estimate the volumes of earthwork required to be excavated, cut, and placed, fill, to achieve a proposed grade, optimizing balance to minimize hauling costs.
What is biochemical oxygen demand, BOD?
The amount of dissolved oxygen consumed by microorganisms to decompose organic matter in water over a specified period, typically 5 days at 20 degrees Celsius, indicating pollution level.
What is chemical oxygen demand, COD?
A measure of the total quantity of oxygen required to chemically oxidize all organic and inorganic matter in water. It is always equal to or greater than BOD.
What is the purpose of primary treatment in a wastewater plant?
To remove settlable solids and floating material through screening, grit removal, and sedimentation, typically reducing BOD by 25 to 40%.
What does secondary, biological, treatment of wastewater accomplish?
It uses microorganisms, activated sludge, trickling filters, to biologically degrade dissolved and colloidal organic matter, achieving 85 to 95% BOD removal.
What is the activated sludge process?
A biological treatment where wastewater is mixed with a flock of aerobic microorganisms in an aeration tank, then separated in a secondary clarifier. Returns sludge maintains biomass.
What is the purpose of chlorination in water treatment?
To disinfect treated water by killing or inactivating pathogenic microorganisms, a residual chlorine concentration is maintained to prevent regrowth in distribution.
What is total dissolved solids, TDS?
The total concentration of dissolved inorganic and organic substances in water, measured in mg/L, high TDS affects taste and may indicate pollution.
What is a sanitary sewer system?
A network of pipes that collects and conveys domestic and industrial wastewater to a treatment plant, separate from stormwater drainage.
What is an environmental impact assessment, EIA?
A systematic process to evaluate the potential environmental effects of a proposed project, identify mitigation measures, and inform decision-making before construction.
What is the purpose of a landfill liner system?
To prevent leachate from contaminating groundwater and surrounding soil, typically using compacted clay, geomembranes, HDPE, or composite liner systems.
What is the critical path method, CPM?
A project scheduling technique that identifies the longest sequence of dependent activities, critical path, determining the minimum project duration. Any delay on this path delays the project.
What is float, slack, in a CPM schedule?
The amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the project completion date. Activities on the critical path have zero float.
What is the difference between free float and total float?
Total float is the delay possible without delaying the project end. Free float is the delay possible without delaying any successor activity's earliest start.
What is the earned value method in construction management?
A technique comparing planned value, PV, earned value, EV, and actual cost, AC, to assess project performance. CPI equals EV/AC and SPI equals EV/PV indicate cost and schedule efficiency.
What does a cost performance index, CPI, less than 1.0 indicate?
The project is over budget. Each dollar spent is earning less than $1 of planned value.
What is the purpose of a Gantt chart?
To provide a visual timeline of project activities showing start dates, durations, and dependencies, making it easy to track progress and identify scheduling conflicts.
What is the work breakdown structure, WBS?
A hierarchical decomposition of the total project scope into manageable work packages, serving as the foundation for scheduling, cost estimation, and resource allocation.
What is the purpose of a project punch list?
A list of incomplete or deficient items identified during a final walkthrough that the contractor must correct before the project is accepted as substantially complete.
What does a change order in construction represent?
A formal document authorizing a modification to the contract scope, cost, or schedule agreed upon by the owner, contractor, and typically the engineer.
What is the role of a clerk of the works on a construction site?
An owner's representative who inspects construction daily to ensure work conforms to the contract documents, specifications, and approved shop drawings.
What is the International Building Code, IBC?
A model building code widely adopted in the United States that provides minimum requirements for building systems including structural, fire safety, means of egress, and accessibility.
What is the purpose of occupancy classification in building codes?
To categorize buildings by their intended use, assembly, business, educational, residential, etc., so that appropriate fire protection, egress, and structural requirements can be applied.
What is a fire resistance rating?
The time and hours that a building element, wall, floor, column, can withstand a standard fire exposure while maintaining structural integrity and preventing fire spread.
What does ADA compliance require in building design?
Buildings must provide accessible routes, entrances, restrooms, and facilities for persons with disabilities, per the Americans with Disabilities Act standards.
What is the design wind speed in ASCE 7?
The basic wind speed used to calculate wind loads on structures, based on a 3-second gust speed at 10 m height in open terrain for a specified return period.
What are the load combinations in LRFD design per ASCE 7?
Factored combinations such as 1.2D plus 1.6 L, 1.2D plus 1.0 W plus L, etc., where D is dead load, L is live load, and W is wind load, ensuring structures resist the most critical combination.
What is the seismic response modification factor, R?
A factor that reduces the elastic seismic force to account for a structure's ductility, energy dissipation, and overstrength. Higher R values allow lower design forces for more ductile systems.
What is a soil profile used for in geotechnical engineering?
A graphical representation of subsurface layers showing soil types, thicknesses, groundwater level, and properties obtained from borings, used to design foundations and earthworks.
What is the cone penetration test, CPT?
A field test where an instrumented cone is pushed into the ground at a constant rate, measuring tip resistance and sleeve friction to determine soil stratigraphy and engineering properties.
What is the vane shear test?
A field or lab test that measures the undrained shear strength of soft, saturated clays by rotating a 4-bladed vane and recording the torque at failure.
What is a pile foundation?
A deep foundation element driven or drilled into the ground to transfer structural loads through weak surface soils to stronger strata or bedrock below.
What is the difference between end-bearing and friction piles?
End-bearing piles transfer load to a hard stratum at the pile tip. Friction piles develop load capacity through skin friction along the pile shaft in surrounding soil.
What is a retaining wall?
A structure designed to resist lateral earth pressure and hold back soil at different elevations, commonly gravity, cantilever, or mechanically stabilized earth, MSE, types.
What is Rankin's earth pressure theory?
It calculates active and passive lateral earth pressures assuming a cohesionless soil with a planar failure surface. K_A equals tan superscript 2, 45 degrees minus phi/2, and K_P equals tan superscript 2, 45 degrees plus phi/2.
What is the factor of safety against slope failure?
The ratio of available shear strength to the shear stress required for equilibrium along a potential failure surface. Values above 1.5 are typically required for permanent slopes.
What is a geosynthetic material?
A synthetic product such as geotextiles, geomembranes, geogrids, or geocomposites used in geotechnical applications for separation, filtration, reinforcement, or drainage.
What is soil compaction and why is it important?
The process of densifying soil by reducing air voids through mechanical effort. It increases bearing capacity, reduces settlement, and decreases permeability for engineering fill.
What is the Proctor compaction test?
A laboratory test that determines the optimum moisture content at which a soil achieves its maximum dry density for a given compactive effort, guiding field compaction specifications.
What is Darcy's law in groundwater flow?
Q equals Kia, where Q is discharge, K is hydraulic conductivity, I is hydraulic gradient, and A is cross-sectional area. It describes laminar flow of water through saturated soil.
What is the coefficient of permeability, hydraulic conductivity?
A measure of how easily water flows through soil, expressed in cm/s or m/s. Sands have high values, 10 superscript 2 cm/s, while clays have very low values, 10 cm/s.
What is a flow net in seepage analysis?
A graphical network of flow lines and equipotential lines used to analyze seepage quantity, pore pressure distribution, and uplift forces beneath or through earth structures.
What is the purpose of dewatering in construction?
To lower the groundwater table at a construction site using wells, well points, or sumps so that excavation and foundation work can proceed in dry conditions.